When I was a kid, and actually, if I'm being honest, still, I guess to this day, to some extent, I hated when my food would touch on my plate. Like when the juice from your green beans would kind of ooze its way into your mashed potatoes. I mean, that is just like, even like saying it to you here today on on this video kind of makes me a little nauseous. And so I always loved those trays. You remember those lunch trays that we used when we were in elementary school that had all the little different compartments, right? So there was a little compartment for your main course, and then your mashed potatoes would be in the little circular piece, and then there was peaches, or some kind of dessert, and then there was a spot for for your silverware and your napkin and for your milk. So nothing would spill into one another and mix together. And I love those trays, right? I love those trays. But the reality is, a lot of us actually live our Christian lives that way, right? So we have these little partitions of our life or our tray that are for what we would call sacred things, right? Like, we attend church, or, we work in the youth ministry, or we lead a small group, or, there's these aspects of our lives that we call sacred. And then there's these other compartments, right, that we call our secular compartments. And, that would be any number of things, but normally including, for a majority of us, our work and where we go to work each and every day. We would refer to those as the secular partitions of our lives. So we have sacred and we have secular, and we have divided and partitioned our lives often as believers into these two categories. And this is actually, not to scare you, but this is actually a form of ancient Gnosticism that has been around since the first century, and something that the church as a whole has been, railing against since the first century. Because ancient Gnosticism said that spirit was good and matter was evil, right? And so we had to separate and keep those two things separately. But we do this in our own lives, really to this day. We might say, "Oh, I'm an accountant by day. That is my secular job. That's how I make a living." But I lead a small group at church, and that is my sacred ministry or my sacred calling, right? Or, I'm a construction, I build houses by day. That's my secular job. But I volunteer for youth ministry at the church, right? Or I sing on the worship team. That's my sacred ministry. And we've partitioned our lives. And this is not how God intended things to be. Colossians 1:19 says, God in all his fullness was pleased to live in Christ, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, including the work of our hands. God has reconciled all things through the work of Jesus Christ. So I would just encourage you today to really break down your understanding of this sacred secular divide, and realize that if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, God owns it all. It's all sacred, including your 8 to 5 job, whether you're a brain surgeon or you sweep floors. All of it is sacred, and all of it matters in God's kingdom.